when we play them. I just want to shatter.
Wait, you hate hang on, you hate the Jags more than anybody else in our division?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
No
100%.
way.
Everybody out there, my Colts blue-blooded maniacs, welcome to the COLT BLOODED podcast, episode 1. I am your diehard Colts fan host, Isaac Allen, straight up from Naptown, northeast side up near Fishers, and we got my other co-host over here. Introduce yourself.
Oh, okay, sure. I'm Drew Lynch. I'm just as diehard. I didn't grow up. Yeah. I didn't grow up. I never grew up. But I was actually in Indianapolis, but on I grew up on Girls School Road. Do you know where that is?
No.
Okay, well it explains.
You said is that near Avon?
Yeah, it is. Just outside of Avon. I was like Brownsburg area.
Wow.
But I think this is our first episode, and we're hella excited because we feel good about where the Colts are projected to be. We're hoping with this new head coach signing and hopefully quarterback combo, we feel really, really good about Steichen and Anthony Richardson. And we just thought that now would be a great time, just weeks before the draft and post weeks into free agency, heading into the season. How do you feel about it?
I feel great. I feel like, listen, first of all, the reason why I think you and I wanted to start this podcast, which, by the way, Drew and I are both stand-up comedians who are from Indianapolis, but based out of Los Angeles right now. So we got to deal with not a lot of Colts fans. So we wanted to make this podcast because we no offense to any other Colts content out there, but we just wanted to be something more exciting. We wanted to offer something to fans that's a little more than just reports and updates.
That's a lot of pressure on us to
and
be
things
exciting.
Like that.
We can't guarantee that we're going to be exciting. We can't even guarantee that we're going to be funny.
Look, we can guarantee we'll be exciting the same way that Grigson could guarantee being a good GM for the freaking Indianapolis Colts. But
he had peaks and valleys for sure.
I think he had valleys and depths of just like an open-ended abyss that he just fell straight into, just dumped this franchise into, and Andrew Luck is the only one still falling from that somehow.
A valley is just an upside down peak. It meant it was headed somewhere, which is actually, I think, where we are now with Chris Ballard. There is loads of, I guess, stability. And I mean, you and I have talked about, our varying opinions on our differences of opinion on how Chris Ballard has managed this roster and his job, but he is just such a measure. Like, he's not somebody who ever makes, I guess, the wrong decision unless he's going to draft like an edge rusher. He can't seem to do that, but he
doesn't take any big swings. Look, I know you and I have a little bit of a difference on how we feel about Ballard. If I had to grade him in the first 2 or 3 seasons, A to A+, honestly. Now
all things considered with Luck retiring and
right.
Because Luck retired in 2018, 2018,
and I'll give him,
or 2019. He retired in 2019, I believe.
Yeah, and I'll give Ballard grace for QB instability, surprise retirement of a bona fide possible Hall of Famer, guaranteed Hall of Famer if he would have stuck around and kept performing at the level he was performing at. But my one gripe with Ballard, and I am one of the, I'll call them in Ballard we trust bros. Like, I'm one of those. In Ballard we trust 100%. I just think that now, this year specifically, 2024, is the time where he needs to stop pussyfooting around this whole, like,
wow, man.
Sorry about the language, man.
Censor ourselves here.
Speaking of taking big swings.
I know.
Verbiage here.
Yeah, you really did.
Sorry, I was born in the 50s.
Not pussyfooting.
Not pussyfooting here. Listen, with Ballard pussyfooting around, we're never going to get a big name.
We're never going to do it. We're going to find our way from Baltimore all the way out to Indy.
Yeah, see? But I just don't want, I'm sick of him not. This year's the year, man. We've got the franchise QB who, only played 4 total games, but we know what he's capable of. We know what he can do with the team around him. We've got a solid core with guys like Buck, Zaire, Kenny on the defensive side, and then and Grover. And then we on the offensive side, we got Pittman. We got that whole O-line, basically, who a little bit up there in age are getting there. But I looked it up. Colts are still the 4th youngest team.
Sure.
So we got a bright future if we can just keep the core together.
As a collective, yes.
And so my thing with Ballard, my only gripe is just that one time, man, when you got all this every year we're top like 8 at least in cap space, and we never pulled the trigger. And Defoe was the only one.
Sure.
And that was really a trade.
Yes.
Where we just signed him to a huge extension, and that's worked out fantastically. But
Yes.
Ballard needs to. I just thought he needed to go into free agency the first day, which he never does anything on the first day, and just go for a wide receiver or go for a CB.
Well, okay, there's a couple things that I want to address. One is you said that we have the quarterback of the future, and yes, he's only played 3 games. Now, saying something like that in the same sentence, sometimes some people might perceive as counterintuitive, because yes, the talent and the ceiling for somebody like Anthony Richardson is evident, but as we all know, I mean, everybody all over Twitter, everybody is constantly trying to advocate for Anthony just to stay healthy and saying how, availability is the best ability. We've heard this all the time. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, some of these people, they're allowed to be as great as they are. Yes, they're great, but it's because they've just had insanely long careers because they've been able to stay on the field. Now, with some of his skill sets where he does some of these design runs, I think we need to scale those way back. And and maybe even do some, it's like you do some in absolutely need to win scenarios and in the playoffs. Like there were a few design runs that I think even the Bills and the Chiefs did late into the playoffs this last season. But I think the reason that you and I are at a difference of opinion with this is because we don't necessarily know that Levis is the guy, and Stroud appears to be the guy. And here's the thing. Right? But also, Trevor Lawrence, T-Law was also somebody who was the guy. Like he was the surefire number 1 pick however many years ago. And even still, that team is still struggling. And that is a team, the Jaguars are consistently known as people who take these big swings early on in free agency. So you basically have 3 teams who are kind of doing a similar approach, and then you have the Colts who are kind of the outlier. And it's like, all right, we're going to be either way right, or we're going to be way wrong. And it's interesting how in that conservative of an approach, it's still actually pretty bold because you're doing something completely different from the other 3 teams where you're just trying to retain a lot of your players in-house. I think the reason that Chris Ballard is not going into like free agency fairly aggressive is because, all right, let's say Anthony Richardson, God forbid, hopefully it doesn't. Let's say, God forbid, he goes down, whatever, week 5 was something. All right, let's say he does 6 games, then you're still looking at 11 games where you're playing on a backup, and you just kind of splurged a lot on all these free agencies on a 1 year or 2 year deal thing, and now
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Now you're reevaluating with Coach Steichen, are we even confident that Anthony's the future? Because despite his upside, he's still not able to remain available. That's what I wanted to say.
So do you think then, if all goes according to plan, Richardson stays pretty healthy next couple of years, then it's over the next couple of years where Ballard should start pulling the trigger?
100%.
Okay,
I think
I'm just a little bit afraid because we have so many good core players that are going to be old by then for their position group. Specifically, like we're not going to have a Kenny like that as much. We're going to have, like, Pittman's going to be 29.
Right.
Or no, sorry, like 28, which is still pretty, that's like prime, right?
Sure.
For a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And JT is going to be kind of a little more up there. Like, so that's the only reason why I said what, because I kind of know what you're saying about they're kind of being risky by not being risky. Yeah. It's sort of like that thing. But I just, when you compare them to the Jags, it's like, okay, but the Jags have made the playoffs in the last 4 years. We are just a perpetual 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 team, and it's like that's what we can't be to win the AFC South. Right. With the Texans on the rise, and the Titans suck, but they're always in this division going to be an issue. and then the Jaguars, who we just can't seem to beat in Jacksonville ever.
Sure.
Which starts, dude, you know how many times I've thought about just like when we play them and I just see how terrible we're playing and how awful the score is. And every time I picture like throwing a rock into the glass where that pool is, and then it just shatters and all those people just come falling out of that little pool in the upper deck, the waterfall. I'm just like, that's how much I hate the Jaguars in Jacksonville when we play them. I just want to shatter.
Wait, you hate hang on, you hate the Jags more than anybody else in our division?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
No
100%.
way.
Bro.
The Titans are the worst.
No, yeah, well, because
now
you
the
have a gripe
Texans are
with
the worst.
Titans fans.
I do.
I actually kind of like the Texans. I can't root ever for them because they're in a division.
Of course. Yeah, I don't mind the Texans. They've been through a lot.
But the Jags have this thing where it's just, it's like what we had with the Pats. Like, I hate when there is that one thing that you just can't do to get over that hump. And our thing was we couldn't go into New England ever and beat the Patriots.
Right.
And we can't go into Jacksonville and ever beat the Jaguars. And we don't have the excuse of weather. It's always fantastic over there when we play them. It might be a little muggy.
Yeah.
But it's like
something psychological.
Or it makes me think about that show Blue Mountain State, which was where they were talking about it was that comedy show about like college football. And like, but really more behind the scenes of like how they party and this and that. And it was funny, but it was also a very guy oriented show, like a very male driven show. But they had an episode where they were talking about they're about to play in the championship, but it's like they're knocking drinks out of each other's hands when the freshmen are trying to drink. That seniors are knocking it out. It's like, dude, you know what could be in there? Like, we are not at home right now. We are somewhere else. Blah, blah. And like the whole thing was like them cheerleaders trying to drug them and lure them to And what?
I said very specific reference, but I'm with you.
Yeah, no, I'm visualizing.
Keep going with this though.
But it's like that's what makes me. That's what that engages the conspiracy football guy in me. Is I'm like, what in Jacksonville? What do they got in the hotel rooms? What kind of air are they pumping in their rooms? Is this dirty Jacksonville, like the clean Jacksonville air outside? And then they're just like, let's pump poison into the Colts players' room. So that's why I hate the Jaguars way more than any other team in the division. The Titans, we had a great rivalry with them, which is why I couldn't hate them. But I always hated. Sort of losing to them was always terrible because it was always so, no matter how good each team was, those were always battles. We were so evenly matched with the Titans all the time. There were certain years where we could sweep the Jags back in the day, and there were certain years where we swept the Texans a lot. But I know, have a gripe with Titans fans.
Yeah, they're just trash. trash people. Here's the thing. Pittman's 26, Jonathan Taylor's 25. Right now.
Okay.
So,
okay.
You know what I mean?
It's not bad.
And the year that we were supposed to have to assess Anthony Richardson was cut short because of his injury. So we're kind of going into this definitely optimistic, definitely trying to still fill out a lot of the holes, but not showing our hand so much by we're not pushing all of our chips in by potentially leveraging the future with cap space or with draft picks. Okay. So I think that, again, they're still playing it really, really conservative because of two things. One, they think if Anthony Richardson, I think they think if Anthony Richardson stays healthy for 15 games, if he's healthy for 15 games, I think they think because of his ceiling coupled with Shane's coaching, I think that they think that is enough to elevate the roster in a huge way. That's why I think they're trying to still remain as conservative as possible. And it's not like they didn't try, because they did go after Danielle Hunter from Minnesota, and he's from Houston, so that's ultimately why he ended up choosing less money to play there as an edge rusher for the Texans.
Damn, I didn't know that.
And then L'Jarius Sneed also went over to the Titans.
I know.
The Titans offered more money. And I think one of the things that I wrote down here was, I think one of the reasons that we lose out on so many free agents is a number of things. But number one is, until we establish that we're a winning team again, like with Peyton, it's kind of a difficult sell. Like, we're not taking the South. We haven't taken the South in a long time. You know what I mean?
Man.
It's that coupled with the fact that Indianapolis isn't as flashy of a city as, say, like a Houston or as like a Nashville. Jacksonville, I guess, is a small market, so I can understand that. But those 3 other states also, they don't have state income tax. We're the only one.
It's hilarious.
Isn't that insane?
We're
the only one.
Insane, yeah.
So if we do it, you're thinking about like, all right, I want to sign that deal, but also that goes away.
I mean, that's what happens to the Rams. That's what happens to people that play in LA or for the Chargers or whatever. It's
I don't think I don't think that's a huge reason. I think people want to play with someone who looks like a promising prospect, like Stroud looks to be in that year 2, and then. I think, with something like the Titans, they also have a younger quarterback who's kind of on the up and up, but at the very worst, you get to be in Nashville. You know what I mean?
So do you think that's why the Texans did what I was hoping Ballard would do? Do you think their GM, was it Caserio, whatever his name is?
Nick Caserio is the GM for the Texans.
Do you think that's why he did what I was thinking we should do with Richardson? Is he's now going out in free agency and nabbing everybody because he got to see a full season of Stroud.
Yeah.
So he knows, I got the real deal. And you think Ballard is still like, we don't know.
We're not
100%.
He's Ballard is he is like, that's why
he's a 100% guy.
He's a 100% guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you've kind of convinced me. You've kind of pulled me your way.
You know what I mean? He with Buckner, he was an established. You know what I mean? It would be like if Josh Allen hits the free agency market, the defensive, the edge rusher, not the quarterback. If Josh Allen hits free agency, I guarantee you Chris Ballard's going to want to see what that's about because it's a surefire thing. He's an established pass rusher without an injury history. And so here's a couple things, all right? I wanted to get into how we feel about
free agents.
And
I wanted to get into that too, dude.
And how you feel about retaining our core right now and what that looks like in comparison to the other.
So to your point, I think you are onto something with Ballard he might splurge in the next year or 2, depending on what happens with Richardson, because we have had like the most, for lack of a better word, or I just love this word, we've had the most incestuous free agency. I've been thinking about that the whole drive here. I was like, I'm going to say this. It's going to sound ridiculous, but every in-house signing, I mean, what other team has done it like we did it?
Sure.
We didn't, like after Flacco, it was just like Colt back to Colt, Colt to Colt, Colt to Colt. And so like I wrote it down like because I want to get into it as well. That goes to the point of what you're talking about with like, with us he's trying to keep a core so that when Richardson gets to a point and then we can get the free agents back. Yeah. So we basically, Pittman, I want to talk about Pittman.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the in-house ones first.
Okay, go for it.
Pittman, easily the most important one, I think, because who else is going to lead that offense right now, physically, mentally, emotionally?
Sure.
It's Pittman.
Okay.
Richardson is a born leader, but he's a newbie, right? With all the talent in the world. JT can lead also. He's more of a lead by example. I feel like Pittman's a little bit like that too, but I think the people that are around like wide receivers, tight ends, people that work on the pass catching side of things, they're going to have to gravitate to Pittman.
Yeah.
Pittman's going to have to be that guy. So he was the number one priority to me. And I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's just because our offense without Pittman looks, I mean, it's, I don't want to say it's anemic. It's just in comparison to everybody else in our division, I would say we probably have the weaker of the wide receiving core.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, we had Montgomery in for 2 games versus the Steelers, and I didn't even and we had at one point Isaiah McKenzie, he's out now, but you know what I mean? We just had people where it's like, I don't know who a lot of these people are. Now, I also know that Ashton Doolin was out last season. He's coming back. He's not somebody who's he to me is like a Westbrook Akine, where it's like, oh, that's right. That guy's on the Titans. You know what I mean? It's Ashton Doolin.
We need
that's
a go
right.
route. Ashton.
Yeah, exactly. So, we lost a lot of our depth, but I do agree with you that Pittman is a very important piece, especially because he is like a staple of just toughness, man. He is, I mean, there are things that you might look at Pittman and say, all right, he doesn't seem like a wide receiver 1 to an outside, because of whatever, speed or whatever. But I'm telling you, as far as dependability, toughness, coming down with it, contested catches, radius, blocking, he's just someone who in all those other tangible areas, he's a number 1.
And to the people who question Pittman's explosiveness, to prepare for this, I watched some highlights last night. Remember last year, Pittman took a bubble screen like 50 yards for a touchdown.
Oh yeah,
that dude scooted. I mean, and I didn't see it because a bubble screen. By the way, my least favorite play in the NFL. I hate the bubble screen. It's for those who. I might be calling it wrong, but for those who don't know, it's the one where the quarterback takes a snap, takes like one step back, and just flings it.
Just throws it to the side. He just throws it to the
widest receiver out there, all the way to the side. So it takes forever to get there, and then he catches it. And by the time he catches it, there's almost always a maximum of a 2-yard gain because everybody just sees the ball in the air. They go to that ball.
Unless it's against the Colts, because that's exactly how the Bengals beat us last year.
I don't understand why. Yeah. That made me question Gus Bradley a lot, or maybe whoever the secondary coach was, because it was just like, who can fall for that? There's only like 3 quarterbacks, maybe 4, that can make that work because of how fast they can throw the ball. And that's Aaron Rodgers, that's Patrick Mahomes, probably not Lamar. Who am I thinking of? Josh Allen.
Yeah,
I don't know who the fourth one.
They
don't
do a whole lot of bubble screens,
but they don't do
it Buffalo.
But they can. But that, to me, that play all hinges on the success of it. Is such a low success rate and a high risk. It's like, dude, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like going to the casinos and just constantly like gambling. It's like a slot machine that takes $1 million to play.
I see what you're saying.
And that you could win $5. It's like, why run that play?
Sure.
But so when Pittman took that and then just housed it for like 40, 50 yards, I was like, he is explosive. He's got the long speed. So maybe he's not as explosive, but once he finds the creases and he finds the angles and finds the blocks for himself, his long speed can take him places. He's
as sure-handed as it gets.
Oh, dude.
And I don't know if it was the instating of Steichen into the play calling, but they figured out maybe 2/3 into the season or maybe halfway into the season that you need to feed Pittman. Like he ended up getting, I think towards the back half of the season, more than 10 catches a game. And that's because they were like, well, first of all, Pittman also complained a little bit earlier into the season. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I do know that just having more and more trust in that, like it resulted into some insane catches where there was yards after the catch as well. So you were talking about how he's someone who is the most important free agency signing. I think we can say Grover and then obviously Kenny, because our secondary
Grover,
is
Kenny,
so
Zaire.
thin. Yeah,
I think,
but we didn't sign Zaire though.
Did
we?
Yeah.
As a free agent, he was hitting free agency? Interesting.
I'm pretty sure he was. You can look it up again because I looked it up and it was, Pittman, Moore, Zaire, Blackman, Grover, Tyquan, which
Tyquan's big too.
Tyquan's pretty big. I'm interested with Tyquan to see if he deserves more playing time because I know he's been injured a lot and he's come back from those injuries pretty strong, and he always does well as a rotational piece.
He tore his patellar tendon and then tore his other one.
I know, dude.
Insane. And yes, Zaire Franklin 3-year extension he signed in March.
So it is an extension, okay. But to me, so not technically free agent. But
right.
But I just think Tyquan maybe deserves to see if he can do a full season at the end. I know he's not quite built. He's more like a hybrid DTD end, but he does so well as a rotational piece. Maybe. I don't know if we've seen enough of him to see what kind of burst he has if he has to go a whole season.
Sure. But here's the thing: is what seems to be Ballard's approach right now is edge rush by committee. Basically, it's edge by committee.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And we don't have a game wrecking edge right now. We have a force to be reckoned with in up the middle with Buck and with Grove, but.
That's what I meant by CB. I didn't mean CB signing in free agency, my bad. When I said earlier to splurge, I was like either a wide receiver or a edge rusher.
Right.
Because it's just...
And they did approach Danielle Hunter. They did.
And I made this point to you before, which again, I think Danielle Hunter's he's great, but I think he's more of a stopgap because of his age. But I'm very interested in seeing like the sack by committee thing. It just doesn't, it's not, as our friend John Stites put it, it's cute, but it's not really, it doesn't get you to game plan for one person. So you never, when you play the Colts, if your offense plays the Colts defense, you never really have to change a game plan for a specific rusher. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem because that's how guy, like you have like a TJ Watt or a Myles Garrett or an Aaron Donald, who is hopefully going to enjoy a great retirement. But those guys, if everyone else on that D line sucked, you still had to game plan you had to shift everything to that one person.
Right.
And even
you see that as a weakness or a strength?
I see that as a strength because you and I have talked before about how so much of it comes down to coaching. The players do their jobs. Of course, it's up to them to win the game, but the coaching, putting them in the positions to do that. If you play the Colts, if you're a defensive coordinator,
I am.
And okay. So Coach Lynch,
yes, I am.
Defensive coordinator for the Asheville Argonauts.
Oh, damn it. Okay. I'm in the XFL. Damn it.
I don't know. I just made up a name. I was like,
really
alliteration
good.
is going to work here.
It is good. I bought it. I was like, what's my fee?
Look, if you need made up team names that don't make sense, I'm your guy. If you're defensive coordinator for the Asheville Argonauts, you get bumped up to the NFL. Oh no, they picked up a 33rd franchise. What's up? You game plan for the Colts. You look at the offense, you go, or the defense, and you look at, this is their D line. You can look at that whole D line, including Buckner, and go, okay, I don't have to shift anything. I can just game plan for each player in their spots. They might move around a little bit. You don't have to change protections. You don't have to change gap running schemes if that's the run scheme they're using. So now you, as the defensive coordinator, how do you make that offensive coordinator change his mindset throughout the game?
Well, if you can figure out a way to neutralize one player on that defensive line, okay, like we tried to do or kind of did with TJ Watt, there were some adjustments made for sure during that game against the Steelers. You know, it is possible. I can see why it's a weakness just as much as I can see it's a strength. Because if you're able to neutralize it or you're able to equalize that issue, then it's something that can be easily resolved. Now, will I also say that the proof happens to be in the pudding when it comes to these elite teams who consistently wind up in the Super Bowl and or win Super Bowls, who also happen to have a front disruption? You know what I mean? That is also something that, I mean, you know, you have Chris Jones, you have not Hubbard, but the other guy over in Cincinnati.
Erickson.
No, it's Hutchinson, I think.
Trey Hendrickson.
Trey Hendrickson. That's it. Trey Hendrickson. And Hutchinson over in Detroit.
Yeah.
You have, you know, the 49ers. We can't even talk about
Bosa.
how, you know, we can't even talk about how many they have. But yes, Bosa.
But he's the guy.
Yeah, Bosa is the guy for sure. So it's just like we have these young pieces and they're effective. But I also want to read you this. All right, this is we set a record last year with our Colts pass rush. Okay. For a number of sacks, okay?
I think we were like 6th, right? Or 8th or something.
I don't know what it was, but I think it's a bit deceiving because these were the teams and or quarterbacks that we played. And this can also contribute to a lot of the wins that we had, all right?
I'm interested to hear
Bryce Young.
Yeah.
This was for our win, pretty much our wins
he
stretch.
Had no O-line.
Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, Mitchell Trubisky, Aiden O'Connell, Tyler Heineke, who we did not sack and did not win against, Will Levis. All right, and a lot of our sacks came in the Steelers game versus Mitch Trubisky. So, you know, there are things that when I ask you at the beginning of the episode how you feel about it, I think there were some things last season like the loss to the Browns where you're like, all right, that we can't chalk that up as a loss. We just can't. The loss
Still mad about that.
The loss to the Rams, I also don't know that we can chalk that because that was just like, is anybody going to cover Puka Nacua? Had someone opened their eyes to the fact that Puka Nacua is on the field, we kind of come back and win that in OT. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
So there's an argument to be made for every game. Everybody says this, but I also look at some of our wins and I'm like, okay, I mean that's 6 or 7, and we played Will Levis twice.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? Like that's
it wasn't Tannehill on one of those?
Or it might have. I mean, it might have been.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe, and then maybe halfway through that game, halfway through the first game, they switched it. I can't remember.
Either.
But either way, like an anemic Titans team, and then one with Will Levis. We got sacked by committee we set a record, but really, what are we doing? When I look at what our pass rush is not able to do,
right.
it just feels like it's not passing the eye test for me.
Yeah.
It's not passing the eye test where I'm like, you know what I mean?
So that's my point I'm trying to make is like you can set up all you want with jabs when you're fighting. When you're boxing, you can set up all you want with jabs. You can cause a black eye and maybe even break a nose a little bit. But until you come with that overhand right or that straight cross, you're not going to knock them out.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can have it's all cute to have a bunch of 5 players with 6 to 8 sacks each, and then you're in the top 10 of sacks. But it's like those sacks only came then, theoretically, because of Gus Bradley scheming it up that way, not because one person on that line just dominated someone one or two or a triple team on the other side.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Why every team always tended to have a chance against us. Like we couldn't just wipe the floor with anybody because it's like there were so many games where you and I were in the same room just yelling like, "Where's the pressure? Why can't we get pressure?"
Yes, pressure.
So it's sure, it's cute we got all these sacks, but the pressure rate was okay. I mean, there were long stretches in games where where those quarterbacks we played against had all day to throw, like full quarters.
Yes.
Where that happened, and that never ever happens when you have a Myles Garrett, when you have a TJ Watt, when you have a Nick Bosa. That will never happen.
Right.
So again, to use a fighting or a UFC or a boxing term, no opponent can tee off on you when you've got them up against the cage and they're doing this and you're just throwing haymakers because you've already got them hurt.
Yeah.
Like the Colts will never do that to anyone on defense until they get a pass rusher like that.
So here's what I want to ask you. Okay. I want you to take a look right now at, I want you to take a look at some of the Jaguars, the Titans acquisitions and the Texans acquisitions, and then what the Jaguars have as their receiving core. All right? I want you to listen to some of these names. The Jaguars have Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis now, Zay Jones. The Titans have DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Westbrook Akine, and then they've also acquired L'Jarius Sneed on defense. Texans have Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and they've also acquired Joe Mixon, who I believe is an upgrade.
Huge upgrade.
From Singletary.
Huge upgrade.
And they signed our favorite, Denico Autry, who just seems to have our number no matter what team he plays on. So that was just smart of the Texans right there.
We need to, hold on, quick aside. We need to come up with some sort of like shirt or saying for Denico's effect on the Colts. Just with being the only player we wanted from the Grigson era to stay.
Denico Autry.
Not Autry.
Autry.
Denico Naughty.
Yeah.
He's freaking naughty, dude. He's running around from
Denico better Autry.
Dude, he's been passed around the AFC South.
He really has, like a hooker in an alley.
Yeah.
Now, so I want you to hear those names because I want you to kind of imagine what those teams do much better than ours is get people involved with their pass game. I feel like Josh Downs had an amazing rookie season.
Love him.
I mean, he is just by all accounts, the numbers, the eye test, how open, like he's a smart player. He's instinctive. He always finds the zone. Yeah. Yes, he always constant separation. He's excellent. All right. To me, he's like, everybody kept talking about like Zay Flowers on the Ravens. But to me, Josh Downs and Zay Flowers, they're so similar. It's just the Ravens are on a much, they're on a widespread scale because of their mainstream attention.
So I'll tell you this. I do not fear the Titans or the Jags. Like I know we'll probably lose to the Jags in Jacksonville because of the poison air. But I feel like
because of contagion,
because of contagions, because of biohacking the freaking Colts room service when they order
swamp fumes.
Yeah, they open the it's just rotten chicken and like, you ordered this, sir. Like, guess we got to eat this before the game and yak up and lose to the Jaguars. But I don't really fear the Jags or the Titans because I think they're kind of their inconsistency. All the best teams win because of consistency, right? The Bengals. Last year showed that they were so consistent and constant contenders because of Burrow and what they kind of built around him. But last year with Burrow kind of dealing with that calf, it changed everything. They couldn't their consistency fell off.
Sometimes, I mean, there was at one point people were hailing Jake Browning as like comeback player of the year.
I mean,
he had a hell of a stretch.
He did.
At one point.
He did. But it just wasn't they weren't the same team.
Sure.
At the very beginning with Burrow, like when he tried to play through all that stuff.
Sure.
So like the Jaguars will always do this thing where they keep loading up on wide receiver talent because they got Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
But their O-line is mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is constantly inconsistent.
Well,
no matter who they have.
Their history of drafting has not been great. Their history of recent
Defense?
Drafting, both has not been great.
Yeah,
it's just I can look up the list of their draft for next episode.
I just know that they're not going to win the AFC South if they keep doing what they're doing. And the Titans are a mess. They're just a mess. Signing Snead, why? If I was Snead, I'd be like, I'm not going over to Nashville.
Sure.
I'll pay the taxes and go to Indy.
Sure.
Where there's a better chance. Or even go to the Texans. Like, I'm surprised Snead wasn't like, hey, how about send me to the Texans?
He was looking for top dollar, and I think he got that with the Titans. Yeah. But
I fear the Texans.
Of course.
Because the coach
they seem to have the coach. They seem to have the quarterback.
They got all of it.
They seem to have the culture.
And they're building.
Yes.
Yeah, they're just like that monster in waiting.
Well, they won the Deshaun Watson trade without question.
Oh, dude,
without question.
Almost as much as the Seahawks won the Russell Wilson trade.
Sure, I think yes. I mean, they're both both bad, and they were both great. I mean, the only difference is that like Deshaun Watson wasn't on the decline, but apparently he's just been injured, and who knows. But we never really thought, because we took the Texans for granted, that those ones that they got would come back to bite us in subsequent years.
I thought
year 2 and year 3. Yeah,
I thought that personally, but it wasn't until Denico Ryan showed what he did this past season where we all went, oh shit.
Yes.
Like,
and their offensive coordinator is also really, really great.
Yeah.
I can't remember where he's from, but he came from somewhere that's got like I'll look it up, but
yeah. So yeah, the Jaguars.
So the reason that I wanted to read you that list is it's Bobby Slowick, by the way. That's the offensive coordinator, and he's doing some pretty amazing things up there or down there with CJ Stroud. The reason that I read you that list is because we don't necessarily know like what the Colts will pan out to be with their potential offense coming up. But I do know that our running back and our offensive line is better than all three of these other teams in our division.
Good point.
So that is something that I think we've loaded up on when it comes to being like, all right, here's something that we know we do well. We win with the trenches. And I'm telling you, I watched footage last night with Zach Moss, with Taylor, with the other backs,
Goodson
and
Sermon.
Yeah. Their yards per carry was like 7 or 8 or I mean, they were just busting out 10 to 20 yard runs.
This leads me to two things I wanted to ask you about, which is like real quick, which is one of them is just a comment, which is you brought up Zay Flowers in the Ravens.
And the Ravens, yes.
And that was like something I wanted to talk about, where it's like, because you and I have discussed before about the threat of having the big three, Richardson, Pittman, and Taylor. So RPOs are a pick your poison 3 ways, right?
Sure.
And that's what the Ravens are trying to do. And I think the reason they haven't gotten over the hump is because they don't have the Pittman. They try to get OBJ. They have had all these receiver. Bateman, they thought he might be the guy.
Right.
Who knows? Flowers has the possibility to be the guy, but it was his rookie year last year. So it's just, and they don't have the JT. They've had the Gus Edwards and blah, blah. So they have the quarterback that is the Richardson, let's say, who can make that work.
Right.
I mean, but it's Lamar Jackson is amazing and elite, but they will never be that I'm putting up 30 points a game type team unless they just get a badass running back and a badass wide receiver one. They can do that thing where it's snap. All right, do I hand it off? Do I run? Do I throw the quick slant to Pittman? Or do I fake it, do a go ball to Pittman? Do I roll it? Like the defensive line and linebackers are just going to be like, just crying every single play. Like, what do we even do? By the time they figured out, the cornerbacks are going to be like, we've been covering for 7 seconds and we have no, you know what I mean? And the Ravens just don't, that's the reason why I think they can't get to the Super Bowl and win. Everybody blames Lamar, but it's not
So
him.
one thing that I wanted to address with you when you say that our off season or our free agency has been incestuous. Here's something that as creepy as that sounds to say this, I like that it is.
Yeah,
I like that it is. I
love incest, bro.
I love incest. We're from the Midwest. But I'm saying
that's why we bleed blue.
That's right.
All of us.
Yeah, because it's the same blood. Yeah, it's the same bloodline. It's because like, here's the thing in soccer, like in European football. Like they're acquiring, it's wherever the top dollar goes, they're acquiring all different. It's a whole new group of people, oftentimes playing together. Always, that's what happened. That's what's happening in Jacksonville. That's what's happening with Texans. In Shane Steichen's post press conference, one of the first things he said, especially when being asked about Gus Edwards, but just I believe he thinks this, or excuse me, Gus Bradley, not Gus Edwards. Gus Bradley, I believe he believes this for a roster in general. Consistency is what's best. Stability, consistency, and I think every single season, pretty much since Chris Ballard's tenure, there has been something of instability. Last season it was with Jonathan Taylor, and it was also with a new coach. The season before it was, getting rid of Frank Reich. Even hiring Frank Reich, I think it was kind of an impulse hire because of the whole Josh McDaniels fallout. Yeah, so I just think like I think that one of the things I really, really love about the Colts, despite how it doesn't seem to be flashy or moving the needle, is the things that we know about our players. We know Kenny Moore is great. We know Grover Stewart is great. He's a huge impact when he is there, and when he's not, it's evident. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Zaire, Julian Blackmon, like these are people that we know, and I want to ask you, how much of wouldn't you rather have it this way? Wouldn't you rather have it where it's like we know these players, and it's better to know the people and have them know each other as well in terms of like
I would much rather have it this way. Okay. Honestly, no. Like, look, I still am Team Ballard. Like I said, in Ballard we trust bros.
Sure.
That's the shirt I want to make.
Sure.
In Ballard we trust bros. That's us, dude. Like I want us to keep, because you know why? Because the Patriots proved so long that works. As long as you got the right coaching staff and retain the right coaches and retain the right players who fit in, as long as you keep that, again, consistency. All goes back to consistency.
The Chiefs are doing it right now.
And the Chiefs are doing it right now. How many all-stars do they have on their team? Not that many, to be honest.
Right.
And they just all keep so winning good. Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And yes, they have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time already.
Yes.
But still.
And coach.
Yes. And defensive coordinators. But that's the thing. They kept them. They're doing what the Patriots did. That's literally what the Chiefs are doing right now. And they're going to be perennial contenders. But yeah, so before we go, though, we just have like a few minutes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just texted. Yeah, we got like till 45 after since we were starting a little late. Let's end with the final segment here, which is going to be my favorite, which is things that are going to happen first before Ballard ever trades up in the first round.
That's right. We're discussing the draft next week, so things that are going to happen that will happen before Chris Ballard trades up.
I think definitely hell freezing over for sure.
Hell freezing over.
That's the hacky one. We'll go with that.
Yeah, we can say that.
Kick it off.
Yeah, we can say that. I can't think of anything that won't get me canceled. I can't even think of anything that won't not get me canceled.
I think that things that will happen before Ballard ever trades up in the first round. I'm going to get a Netflix special.
Oh, interesting. Maybe. That's kind of a good way to leverage it with the future. I can't add to this. The only thing that I want to be able to add is like, all right, something that's football related. If I go outside of football, I'm going to get canceled. So I'm just going to say I can't. It's the only thing my brain is
Let's
thinking
stay with football then.
Yeah, let's stay with football. I would say, the Panthers win their division before Chris Ballard trades up.
Yeah, and feel free to comment on this with yours. I think things that will happen before Ballard trades up ever in the first round. Josh Allen will lose a foot.
I think I'll have a growth spurt before Chris Ballard trades up.
I think I'm going to look even more Asian as I get older before Chris Ballard trades up in the first round.
Wait, you're Asian?
A little bit.
I'll get gender reassignment surgery.
For Ballard.
I am actually considering that, so I don't know. He might trade up.
I think my girlfriend and I are gonna get married before Ballard.
Whoa! Jeez, I thought you guys were I liked you guys together.
No, we're good. We're good.
Not anymore,
but I think part of the
bud.
problem is
You
the
better
way
hope she doesn't make it to the end of this.
I think the part of the she won't watch this. That's part of the problem. She could give a damn about the Colts, which is kind of the reason.
She needs to go.
Which is kind of the.
She needs to go, man.
My girlfriend will give a crap about the Colts before Ballard trades up in the first round. All right, got one more?
I don't have any more. I'm B, and plus that one was way too good.
All right. Well, this has been episode 1 of the Colt Blooded podcast with Drew Lynch over here
and Isaac Allen over there,
and we got another episode coming out soon.
We'll discuss the draft next week. We got so much more to get into about that. Best fits for the Colts and where we think that we're going with the 15th pick. But we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.